Becoming You, the proven method for crafting your authentic life and career. It's adapted from that class, drawing on what she's learned teaching it. Suzy Welch, it's good to see you again.
Hello.
Welcome, welcome to CBS
Thank
Mornings.
you.
You know, we're all taught live your purpose, find your purpose, live your passion, go and be happy.
Chase your dreams.
Chase your dreams,
Yeah.
and to that you say,
No, too woo-woo. I mean, I think, I refuse to be woo-woo in the classroom, right? So you're told chase your purpose, that's, and your passion. Nobody defines either of those terms and tells you how to get there. And I thought, well, wouldn't it be interesting if there was a way to really help people get there, especially after the pandemic, which raised all these questions that it did not answer about why we work, where we work, how we work. And then you have a bunch of people who you just had a story about student debt, who had debt, who were sort of chasing this dream after that dream, people who were being laid off. And I knew that I had a methodology that I developed starting long ago, Gayle, when you were my boss at the Oprah magazine, that was about...
I don't recall ever being your boss,
okay, but all right.
But you pitched the class to NYU.
I did.
What did you tell them that you wanted to do?
I said, I think there's a class that I wish I had taken when I was in MBA that helps you figure out what to do with your life.
Yeah.
And where is this class? And he said, well, we don't, the dean, I said, where is this class? And I said, I think I have this class. And they said, let's try it as an experiment.
And then it took off gangbusters.
I want to go back to school.
Yeah.
I mean, I love that in the beginning of the book, you say you're not part of the happiness industrial complex. Yeah. Happiness is not a goal, it's an outcome.
Exactly.
Can you expand on that?
Look, I want everyone to be happy. I mean, don't get me wrong, it would be great. I would love everyone to be happy. I'd like to be happy myself, but I think the chasing of happiness is kind of a, how do you even chase happiness? What is happiness? Happiness is kind of fleeting. Kids go off the rails, people get sick. What I would like to help people do is find a meaningful, productive, connected life based on their values and their aptitudes and their interests. That's a pretty complicated thing. I don't like the simplicity of just saying be happy. It's more complicated than that. Life is complex.
Yeah, along with aptitudes, there's 3 parts to becoming you.
Yes.
Values, aptitudes, and economically viable interests.
That's
you spend
right.
a lot of time on values.
I do.
Why is that so important, and what kind of values are you talking about?
All right, so there are 15 human values, according to my theory and my research. I think they spend all the time on values because most people don't know what their values are. They generally say family, financial security, but there's 15 values, and how much you have of each one really matters. And I've done research that shows that only 17% of people even know what a value is. It's a term that's been kind of hijacked by the political discourse. And yet what your values are, what you really care about, what your driving beliefs are, that's so important. And we need to have a conversation about our values. We are all different with our values.
Yes.
DNA, I created a test, it's called the Values Bridge, where you can find out exactly what your values are. At last, this is sort of a revelation for people. So we've got to figure those out before we can really move forward.
You can go online and take the test, but the other, number one, I think the book is terrific.
Thank you.
And the reason why I like it so much is because it's also very personal.
Yeah.
You could almost say you're Exhibit A of Becoming You, because after Jack Welch, your husband, died of many years, you said you just sort of went to the woods and were literally laying on the ground, looking up at the sky like, what the blank am I going to do with myself?
I walked my dogs a lot. I mean, it was during the pandemic. He died at the beginning of the pandemic, and I did not know what to do with my life. I was like, okay, I'm a totally different person now. What do I do? How do I even figure out what to do? And I thought I had this methodology. I'd been working on it for years. And then I thought, I do think this is a methodology. And I went and pitched the class to NYU. But the person who needed it the most was me.
You.
Yeah.
And what did you find out about yourself and what to do?
Well, I think
how to get back on track.
I think it's funny. I must have had an inner instinct that becoming a professor was my, what we call area of transcendence, this intersection of your values, your aptitudes, and your interests. I must have had a sense. And what I found out was when I did the full excavation of my values and the testing of my aptitudes, and I really sort of sorted out what my interests, my economically viable interests were, it was exactly in that classroom where I was beginning to feel exquisitely alive. And I thought, this is the feeling of being exquisitely alive. I bet all 3 of you feel it right here on this
Oh,
set.
God, I love that, exquisitely alive.
I love that as well. Networking events are things that don't make everybody feel exquisitely alive.
You hate networking.
I hate them. I gave the graduation speech at NYU Stern School of Business where I teach, and I actually stood up there and said, don't network. Then I turned around to the dean and said, am I fired? I mean, I think networking is dumb because you get ahead by A, working in your purpose, but B, by making friends. And to tell people to go into big conference rooms and hand out their card, I think it's the worst advice we give our kids, and I object.
Just give us one example of someone who took your class and was transformed because they thought one thing and then they did another.
Oh, I mean,
just one.
So many examples. I had a student who came in. He'd been prepared to be a banker by his family since he was like 3 years old. He went to a special school. He sort of marched. He was like sleepwalking through, and I thought that this was a kid who was very disengaged. He'd come into class, his head was down, he didn't raise his hand ever. I had no idea what he was going through, but he went through the whole process. Then on the last day, the students stand up and one by one, they say the narrative of their life for the next 40 years based on the work that we've done. The idea is to get you to a place where you can tell the story of your life going forward for 40 years, living by design. And he said, I want to dress Kim Kardashian. I'm blowing it all up. I want to go into fashion, and here's why. Here are my values, here are my aptitudes, and here are my interests. And I remember thinking, oh God, I hope his parents don't have my address. I mean, I was
going to say, if they're watching, they're not happy right now.
Two ways to live your life by default or design. Yep. You will learn about that in the book. Like it, Suzy Welch. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Becoming You goes on sale wherever you like to buy your books, starting tomorrow.